Hi, everybody. It's been a very interesting week for virtual events. As you may have seen in my short video I posted on LinkedIn, there are some very big virtual events happening still today, right now. And I've made this video as a little bit more of a deep dive into my findings and my opinion on what works and what doesn't work. So before I begin, I want to talk about this blog, which one of the members of the XRCROWD, which is a group that got me into this whole testing of virtual worlds and virtual reality for events, posted. So he posted the link to Seth Godin's blog here, and I'll let you read it in your own time. But I think the key point is here that the effort that we used to make to go to a conference, in a foreign country, or even just to go to the office, if you look at them with an objective point of view, you can see that there's a huge effort that we need to do these things. But obviously the value of those things, probably mostly the social value of doing those things, was really high and worth us going through all these things. We're now going through a phase where we're reevaluating these things. We realize that we can work remotely from home. The experience may not be perfect today. The technology doesn't always work. For example, the infrastructure is not there for everybody, and so that's what everybody's going through, that work from home scenario. And in the event space, a lot really happened this week. So an event called Laval Virtual, which is still going on. You can still attend that for free in a virtual world until Friday today. Is going on, and they made that switch from a physical event to a virtual event. But unlike many other virtual events, they're not simply streaming the content in a two-dimensional way on the screen. They invited participants to a virtual world, and this event is it's the first of a kind, I think, of that scale. So about 6,000 people registered, 1,200 people are attending at any one time. So if you really want some experience on virtual events, go to Laval Virtual website or Google that, and you can still register today and attend completely for free. You do need to download an app, but that's the app that will take you into that virtual world. So the group of people that have been involved in, many of them involved in the organizing of that event, are really just trying to push the boundaries. So like the latter part of Seth's blog here, new effort is required. People need to push the boundaries, need to explore, and we need to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And that's why I personally was very keen to get involved in this initiative. So I wanted that hands-on experience of what works and what doesn't work, and that doesn't work. And that's what I'm going to try and summarize for you in the next, let's say, 20 minutes or so. So the first thing was that I saw this article just popped up in LinkedIn right now. The reason Zoom calls drain your energy. It's on the BBC website, Work Life. It's worth reading this. I think there are many reasons that we're all becoming very aware of just now that are the reasons why being in constant video chats and calls is a difficult thing. I work from home for a long time, so I'm quite used to that. And to be honest, I'm really ready for a better and a new way of doing things, which is why I'm looking at virtual reality and virtual worlds now to do that. So one of the things that I really feel now that I've had some experience with VR is that when I've got my 27-inch monitor here, at the back here, which is quite nice to view content on, to read things on, to look at videos on. But I really don't like having social conversations with people when I see little, thumbnail images, essentially. I still find that that's a very limited way of having a social interaction. On the other hand, as you'll see, having an avatar, being in a virtual world is also extremely limited. The avatars themselves are very limited. So this kind of takes me on to this first point here, which is about the Laval Virtual Conference, which is happening just now. So this is a video from that conference. You can see how it looks there. Everybody has an avatar which can move around on and off the stage, as you can see there. People can present. And you can zoom in, so that this the content you can see there basically zooms in pretty much full screen, so you can see the slides pretty well. One of the things I noticed about this is that, of course, the avatars are pretty wooden. They don't really do much. You can, of course, move around. So you can see here that the presenter, in this case, is actually looking at her slides. So you do sometimes get some benefit from that avatar being on the stage, but very little. The thing that's very obvious is that if the presenter is in VR, so if they have hand tracking and head tracking, or even full body tracking, then the presenter would play a far bigger role of that content. So you would be able to get some of the expression, and some of the movement around the stage would be a little bit more natural. So for me, key takeaway from this virtual event is that the presenters should have been in VR. They would have been able to add some stage presence, body language with hands and these kind of things, move their head around. To be honest, when the avatars don't really move, you may as well just zoom in full screen onto that kind of thing. The other thing that, and we might see this if we click on this other live stream here. I can't really see it just now. The other thing that was very positive about this event is that because you have an avatar, you can move around the stage. You can also move around the campus where this conference is happening. So you can actually move your avatar from room to room. And one of the key things about that is the ability to see who else is there. So you can actually see with a username above the person, okay, there's my friend Simon from Hamburg. Or there's, you can hear the spatialized audio, so you can hear when you when you pass by a conversation or a friend. So this is the second thing that's actually very effective. These avatars can move around freely in the world, and I've seen several gatherings where people are having a conversation, or I've walked past groups of people where I could hear that they were talking about something interesting, so I joined the conversation. So these kind of social behaviors are partially possible in a virtual world with an avatar today, and those are very hard to replicate on a Zoom or video conferencing tool. So that's a really unique capability of simply the virtual world, spatialized audio, and the ability to move around the virtual world with your own free will. So those are the positive things about using this virtual world. And again, as I said, I think the avatar really need to have, at least the presenters, it would be very useful to have the avatars presenting in virtual reality where they can be a little bit more expressive. We did another event, the XRCROWD were involved in another event, which was the XRBASE Investor event, as you can see here. I'm just going to play the video. So here you can see we were using a different tool from that Laval Virtual main event, where the avatars are a little bit more realistic, where actually everybody here was using VR, or at least all of the people on the panel. So I'll just let you hear some of the audio from that.
Brand new companies are being formed, and they're bringing new technologies and capabilities.
So Richard Ward from McKinsey, actually somebody's very good at moderating in VR. But you can see that the avatars are not perfect. The hands move around in a strange way, all these kind of things. This for me was very interesting. So obviously for me the main advantage of attending that event in VR was that because you see fully tracked virtual reality avatars, because you yourself are in that space with your glasses on, your headset on, I felt like I was really at that event. I really felt like I was in an event. The other thing about having the virtual reality glasses on and being present in the event is that you're really present there. So you have to get yourself a completely quiet room with no distractions. And because you're in there, you have no other choice but to look at the content in there. So you give it your full attention. So you can, you look at the slides, you look at the body language of the presenters. You can't look at your phone. You can't look at anything else. You may, of course, look around at the people around you. so that's a real advantage about doing it in VR. The other thing, of course, is that we had a social event where we broke out into an area and we met people. And again, the people that I met in that social event, I really felt like I met them. Although I did have the same impression when I was doing that in Verbella with my avatar, just using my desktop mode. So pretty interesting. The guys who made this, they also made a full, if you like, TV production of it. So they had 5 virtual cameras. They had people editing the video together to make the panel discussion look dynamic and interesting. So I'm not too sure if they included the panel discussion here. So these are startup pitches. Yeah, here's the panel discussion. So this was actually, as you can see, they're virtual cameramen and an editing team that cut this together to make it look like a much more, sorry, I'll turn down the desktop noise, to make it look like a much more interactive and dynamic event. And of course, this is something that is hard to do, with Zoom. You could have, of course, like the musicians have been doing recently, a panned out view of the people and have them all placed together, but you can't cut between the screens as easily, can't edit like this. So that was a major advantage of doing it in VR, that you can do post-production and you can edit the event together in a more realistic way. At the end of the day, these guys with the XRBASE Investor event were really pushing the envelope to the extreme. Some of the technology is not quite, I think, where it needs to be. There's some friction to get into these things. Some things work, some things don't work. The content on the slides didn't work for me in VR, unfortunately. But they're really pushing the boundaries. So they're showing that probably a group of about 40 people were involved in this altogether, can actually do this sitting at home. So the video editing, the recording, the live streaming, the panel discussion, anybody who's created an event will know that a lot of people are involved to make a professional event. So key takeaway from that was that you probably need the same number of people to produce an event in virtual reality as you need it in physical life. Maybe a little bit. Obviously, you don't need to send people across the world to go and look at the venue or that kind of thing. But you still need camera people, you still need editors, you still need lighting engineers, the people who organize the panels, the speakers. All of these kind of things are still valid. So that was very interesting, because that was, for me, effectively like being part of a real event virtually. But the whole team that's required, the back end that's required, is still there. I wanted to make a point about the fact that the avatars are very simplified here in Verbella, maybe a little bit more detailed here in this is the Engage platform from Immersive Education, because of course there are things happening in the sort of research world out there which are going to make these things much more comfortable and much more natural for us. So this is a researcher I follow, who's got the Azure Connect device. It's a Microsoft device that you can buy. You can see it there in the video. And he's looking through a set of small augmented reality glasses and can see a colleague on the other side of the world there who's got the same Azure Connect camera, in his living room in Japan, I think here. So this is showing you what's possible today. As you can see there, of course, this is a volumetric capture. It's not an avatar. But as you can see there, it's quite pixelated, and this is because of the resolution of the camera, but it takes across camera. And when you're wearing a stereoscopic pair of glasses, that avatar will be a 3D, set of points in 3D space. So this kind of technology of holoportation is really getting there. And when we can do events, have speakers on stage, with their real, bodies like this, those are real digital avatar of themselves, then I think the whole thing starts to change. So that's worth noting there. And then I kind of wanted to finally say, that digital events are, of course, you've got conferences where it's very much a copy of the real conference room if you like, as it is today. That does feel very familiar. You go outside to the breakout area, you go to the big auditorium, as you can see here, to see the 2D content on slides, the death by PowerPoint. For me, the social aspect of these conferences is the most important. So that's the key takeaway. If you're going to look at PowerPoints, just put it on SlideShare or stream the presentation live on YouTube. The social aspect's the most important one. But a little look into the future. So, as we all know, there are millions of people who play the game Fortnite. And Fortnite, of course, is turning into a little bit of an event space, especially now because of the lockdown. Many people stuck at home. But there's an article from, I think it's Bloomberg, that I've referenced just on a recent post on LinkedIn, where the makers of Fortnite are talking about Fortnite being part of the metaverse. So this alternative reality where we can do things, connect to each other, do social things, hold events, for example, in this alternative reality. And of course, Fortnite is not a VR or an AR game. It's just a standard desktop game run on your iOS devices and on your gaming PC. But they recently held an amazing event, a musician called Travis Scott, as you can see here, where they really showed what's possible in these digital worlds. So instead of holding back and trying to replicate the existing world today, they kind of really went for it. So I'm just going to play this for a couple of seconds. Give you a bit of the music. So you can see there, they've just kind of thrown the physics out the window, any sort of reality, and there's an absolutely huge version of the musician here. I believe the musician is either probably has some kind of body tracking on here, was recorded in a volumetric type of studio, but the people I've spoken to who were in this event said it was just absolutely amazing, blew their minds. So it doesn't necessarily need to be about wearing the virtual reality headset today. I think just for us to start to get used to having these avatars, our avatars in these virtual worlds, will give us just simply new possibilities to connect, new possibilities to experience things together. And of course, anybody who does online gaming, doesn't need to know that. That's what millions and millions and millions of people do already today, is experience things together in online worlds. And this is something which I'm going to look at in a couple of blog posts in the near future. So that's all from me just now. I hope you enjoy this. If you can, try these things for yourself. Attend Laval Virtual through Verbella. Download AltSpace VR, for example. You can use that without a VR headset. Download Fortnite if your computer will handle it. Attend this event. They're going to do reruns of this event, I think, all the way through till Sunday. And I guess one final point is just to reiterate it, is that in general, I felt like, even though I'm a VR, maximalist, if you want, I'm very much pro VR. I felt like, the technology, this is highlighted that some of the technology is really not there yet. So in my Oculus Quest headset, the image wasn't really clear enough for me as much as I'd like it. The comfort wasn't quite there. So, people using virtual reality for events just now are clearly early adopters, but it is going to get better. So a slightly smaller headset, slightly more affordable, will mean that more people have these things. So I think in the near future, it's going to be a combination of using more virtual worlds like this, so content created in game engines like Unreal here or Unity, is going to play a bigger part of our life. So it's already a part of the lives of people who work in engineering or use virtual training and these kind of things. But I think it's going to become a bigger part of the general public's life, to attend events, to meet people, to meet new people, to hang out. It already happens in generally the younger generation. At the same time, virtual reality is going to get better. The headset's going to get better. Augmented reality is going to become more publicly available. And I think what that gives us as humankind, if you like, is this broader spectrum of tools to have, let's say, these digital experiences, where you could sort of say the lower end might be just using your computer to attend an event in Fortnite with your avatar, and the higher end, might be doing something where you have augmented reality glasses, using 5G to stream in real time an event, into your living room. So I think there's going to be this broad spectrum of capabilities that we'll have as digital alternatives. Again, for me, the focus is that these digital experiences can be social. And this was always one of the big things about the people who are involved in the VR industry. VR, people think it's a very isolating technology, which it can be, of course, if you want to use it like that. But most of my time in VR is with other people, and I think this is what the COVID lockdown is teaching us all, that digital technologies can allow us to connect to other people. People's children are playing Minecraft together on the school servers, or people are doing Zoom calls together in a very simple way, or house parties. And I think that the way that that's going to go is from a combination of these digital worlds, game engine created content playing a bigger part of it, and of course the augmented reality version of Zoom will one day allow us to have our closest friends and family in our living room, and allow us to interact with them in a far more natural way than we can today through our little postage stamp screens. So that's all from me just now. Look forward to your comments.